She also does endurance and has a nice little Arab gelding. So I want to kind of keep this super discussion-y. So if you guys have any questions while I'm talking or whatever, please feel free to interrupt me. So has anybody done any type of endurance stuff at all yet before, or has any experience with it, volunteered or anything? Okay, so we're starting off from the
I've helped crew.
Yes, Mary has crewed for me before. And so I want to kind of start off with, we're going to keep this relative to our region, which we're in the northeast region of endurance here, because it does change a little bit region by region. And we have a couple different things that people consider distance riding here. We have endurance, which is governed by AERC, the American Endurance Ride Conference. The group that I am a board member of, the USA Northeast Endurance, is relatively new, but we're kind of starting to do some stuff in this area, start our own rides, because every region sort of has their own, I don't want to say governing body because that's not quite right, but their own, or kind of like a group that promotes rides in that specific region. The other thing we have in this region is competitive trail riding, and our governing body for that is ACTRA here. It's a little bit different than endurance, but it's very similar. It's not really like the NACTRA where you are doing like obstacles or anything. So basically, endurance can be anything from 25 to 100 miles in a day. You start with, you would get there usually the day before. You're going to bed in. You would then start the next morning with your ride and go that way. With extra, with endurance, it's the first person to cross the finish line. If you're doing 25 miles, which is considered limited distance, you have to pulse down and that's your finish time. Any other person is the first, like distance would be 50, 75, 100 miles. The first person to cross the finish line would be the winner. With extra, you are given a time window. You have to come in that time window, and then you are judged by both a vet and a lay person on how well your horse has gone through the ride, and you'll do things like try to circle. They'll like be very hands-on about like there's a little nick here that might be a point off. So that's kind of the main difference between AERC and ACTRA. Mostly today we're going to be talking about AERC. Also, I'm not sure if the person who said they were going to, hold on one second. I'm sorry. One of the people coming says they are back on the dead end lane.
Oh, I bet they're back into the farm.
Oh, yes.
Can you send me their number and I can go call them, or?
Sure, it's 717 5. And somebody had also asked me to mention competitive trail driving. I'm not sure if someone asked me that this year, but that would be in with ACTRA, and basically you're doing the same thing, but you're driving as opposed to riding. ARC does not have a driving division. And then the fourth thing would be ride and tie and aquathon, which I actually do that too. Ride and tie is 2 people, 1 horse, and you flip-flop back and forth. You like leapfrog while you're on a trail. And it's, they don't usually have events just of their own. Every once in a while they will have one, but they are held with either an AERC ride or an ACTRA ride. And then equithon can be 1 person and 1 horse. You ride your horse a loop, you get off, you vet through. If your horse passes the vet check, then you will run the loop yourself. Or you can do it as team, where you have 1 rider, 1 runner, add the times together. I actually talked my husband into doing that with me recently and being the runner for me because he's faster than me. So I have kind of a list of questions here that people had sent me beforehand. So I'm just going to kind of start going through some of those, and like I said, feel free to interject anything you want to know. A lot of people were asking me, are there instructions or instructors or barns that specifically train for endurance? And there really aren't. There aren't a whole lot of places like that. But there is this great resource on the AERC page that has a list of mentors that will, if you contact them, it has their personal email addresses on it. There's a huge list for each region. They're nearby with you. Most of them will be happy to take you out on the trail with you, teach you about pacing and conditioning. If you aren't super close to anybody, a lot of people are happy to answer questions on email. I will also answer any questions anybody has after this. If you want to email me or text me or whatever, that's fine. But there's a whole list on there. There's also a list of people who are just looking for riding partners to go out and train with. So another great question I had was, are there riders out there who don't want to race, but just want to go out and have fun? I think you kind of said that also. And absolutely, I would consider myself one of those riders. ARC is really cool. We have a prize for the person who finishes last. It's called the Turtle Prize, and everybody likes having a Turtle Prize. Like, it's pretty cool that it doesn't matter where you place in it. You just are good to go, and you get your mileage anyway. And I mean, there's definitely people that go out there and they do want to win, and I mean, winning is great. Like that, be like top 10-ing. But if I get through the day and I get my mileage, and my horse is happy and I'm sound at the end of it too.
The slogan is to finish is to win.
Yes.
So that is a mantra.
So a lot of people were also asking what type of horses are suitable versus not suitable for endurance. And really, I think pretty much any sound horse could go out and do a 25-miler with a proper conditioning. A lot of it is their brain a little more than their body. There's a lot of horses that get what we call race brained, and that's where you take it long and slow at the beginning, because they like to go out there and race, and you'd be really surprised that they can race for that 25 miles, and then your arms are really sad about that. They do have a really strict drug policy in AERC, so if you've got a horse that's getting by on Equiox or a little bit of butte here and there, are they suitable? Probably not, unless you can get them off of those things. I think we got somebody. Did you get a hold of? So, what kind of equipment do I need? Is a big question. So I brought a lot of my equipment. These are all set up for 4 different horses, and they're all different. The answer is ride in whatever you have, whatever you're comfortable with. This is what I would ride in at a ride. Running shoes, tights, although I probably wouldn't have a black shirt on, it would be purple to match the rest of the stuff. But really, I have this is my young horses tag, and it's basically a dressage saddle. It's what she's happy in. I can stick in it pretty good when she does silly stuff. And she rides in a super simple snaffle. And you'll notice that a lot of our strap goods are all beta or biophane. It works really nicely. You just dump them in water and they're clean. Especially when you're crossing a lot of water too, and you're swashing sponges and stuff on your horse, and you don't want to ruin your leather. Beta biophane's awesome. You can also just throw it in the dishwasher to clean it. A lot of us use breastplates on trail. I consider it kind of a safety device when we're out there. Some people say it's just extra weight and don't use it, so it's totally up to you. A lot of people do use something set up like this where you have a rope halter that goes under the bridle to complete your bridle. And you can see the brow band just kind of snaps onto the crown piece of the halter so that you have your nose band there. And then when you get into the vet check, you can just pull your bridle off, put your lead rope on here, and you've got your halter on already, and you're not in an open field with a bunch of horses, with your halters on and off. Like that. Like this setup here belongs to a Tennessee blocker. He is super narrow, and he's got this is actually treeless. So like I said, anything you want. Mohair is really popular for the girths, as are any type of very comfy saddle thing. I think this is my friend's saddle. It makes her kind of look Kosaki here with her fancy fluffiness. These are both a super popular endurance brand. Specialized. They have panels that move underneath them, so you can adjust them to fit different horses. This one fits a tiny little Arab, and this one fits an older Morgan. And I'll just show you this one other one too. My Morgan mostly goes in the super easy little S Hackamore, because you want your horse to be able to eat and drink on trail, and she's like the old school girl. She's taken so many people on their first endurance ride, and she's perfectly happy and bees well in her. Very minimal. Another great thing to have is some type of drink holder. Just keeping up with your own hydration and nutrition is really important while you're out there. Having like some extra pockets so you can take electrolytes on the trail with you for your horse. That's a general tack gist. Do you have anything to add tack-wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's comfortable for you, it's what's comfortable for your horse. I think other big important things is making sure you have a good pad to keep their backs cool, that wicks away moisture, doesn't build up heat, and then, like she said, packs for snacks. Some people have full pommel packs or cancel bags that go all the way across, and you can keep your ride cards in there, snacks, electrolytes, things like that, which she's gonna get to in a little bit, but yeah.
So now that we've got you kind of tacked up here, boots versus shoes. Is anybody currently using boots right now, or anything? Glue-on shoes? They're super popular right now. I personally use boot setups on pretty much all of my horses. Every once in a while I'll put shoes on them if you have a super rocky ride. Some horses are out there competing barefoot, but you do have rides that require hoof protection. Like Old Dominion down in Virginia, there's so many rocks you just can't do it without hoof protection. But that will say it in the entry form. I really like the boots. They're a little bit more grippy than shoes. They have a little bit more concussion protection, but then you also have that if they aren't fitted quite right, or if you have something that really just twists it around, they occasionally do come off. I don't have that happen very often, but every once in a while, and it's my mistake if they come off. I didn't do something right. People often ask me like, what type of boot? There's several brands, and they all fit a little differently. And they all fit different shaped hooves a little differently. So the thing I usually tell people is have your farrier do a trim, measure the foot, and they're usually done by millimeters, so they're pretty specific. And then go out and find what boot matches closest to that, so that you're not trying to match the hoof to the boot, you're matching the boot to what your horse fits, your horse's individual hoof shape. But yeah, there's still a lot of people who are doing four shoes and pads. In some of the other regions, it's common to train barefoot, and then you get to the ride, and there'll be a farrier at the ride, and they'll put the shoes on for you right there. That's it. I was very surprised when I went to another region and had that happen, because it doesn't generally occur here. I was like, oh, that's different. There's like a mile-long line for the farrier.
Are you carrying spares with you?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Like I did my, I have a 6-year-old Morgan, and her first ride was at the beginning of July, and I mean, she's been wearing boots, but it was super rocky. It was the first time she climbed a mountain, and I was like, I don't know, so I took the spare with me. The horse that I have been fitting for a long time, and know those boots are gonna stay on, then I don't usually carry a spare, but I will have one at the hole in case I need to put something on that.
You mentioned the terrain and the traction of the boots. Do people ever use like small studs?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I have most of my boots right now have very, very tiny studs in them, just because it's been so wet, and I board right at Fair Hill, and it's a lot of grass fields and a lot of hills, and everything is slippery on those grass fields when they're wet. So just having it's like the most little minuscule one. In the winter when there's ice on the gravel roads there, I'll put bigger studs in the boots. And you can take them on and off like the studs in shoes. Maybe they're a little more complicated than shoe studs, but they're not too bad to do. Question. I did have one question that says, why do you carry a sponge on a string? Which I think that was my favorite question that somebody asked. So I brought one of my sponges on a string. Basically, anytime you can cool your horse off on trail, especially if it's like this out there, take the opportunity to do it. Whether you're crossing natural water, or if you're at a ride where there's not a lot of natural water, they will generally put big troughs out, maybe about every 5 miles or so, and they'll tell you a lot of times, like, this trough is for drinking horses, this trough is for sponging. But if you have one of these and you're crossing a creek and you have practiced with your horse, because let me tell you that is not a good idea to do without practicing. When they see that sponge floating and then the string like touch their legs and stuff, and they have not seen it before, it can be a thing. But if you have practiced it, you can leave it hooked on your saddle, you can hold on to it, dunk it real quick, pull it back up, sponge their neck, and go on. And then as they're trotting away and you're trying to roll it back up. Yeah, it works really well. So that is why we carry a sponge and a string. If anybody decides to start doing this, it helps if you get it wet before you start riding, because if it's super lightweight and it's dry, like, it doesn't want to go in the water. Do I need saddle bags, or can I carry a backpack? It is totally up to you. I don't know a lot of people who carry a backpack necessarily. There are people who use camelbacks for hydration. I personally don't love them. I feel like they kind of shift around a little bit. For riding tie, I've used them because then you're not like swapping the bottle with whoever's switching back and forth with you. But on a general, I don't like the big move around so much. But lots of people do use them, and they're fine. So really, again, it's whatever you are comfortable with. So conditioning before you get to the ride. Anybody would throw out the ballpark of how many hours they take a week to spend conditioning rides if you're going to do, say, a 25-miler.
Isn't it that many miles over the course of a week? Like, I don't know how many hours that would be, but I guess it depends on how fast you're going.
For if you're getting ready to do your first one and your horse is not fit for yet, yeah, pretty much you're aiming for somewhere around like 25 miles. And at least one of those rides being like a 12 to 13 mile, like half of the distance, and then breaking the rest up over the rest of time, especially once they are fit. And then they might go out and do like 2-3 hours on the weekend. Right now, I really only have one that I'm competing on, and we're waiting back for Lyme's result on her, so I presume that she's also on hiatus. But people were asking, can you do this if you have just a ring at home and you can get to the trails on the weekend? Absolutely. Definitely do that. Like an hour work, a couple days in the ring, and then a 2-3 hour trail ride on the weekend, and you should be good to be able to do that. Now the average pace you want to keep for minimum is about 5 miles an hour. So a lot of your weekend you might want to be kind of at a trot, but you kind of have to. The more you get to know your horse's gait and how fast they're going. I have a saddlebred mare who her trot speed is about 14 miles an hour, and it's very different from my Morgans who want to hover around like 6 miles an hour. So you kind of, once you learn how fast that trot is, you can really figure out, well, I can walk this much, and I might need to canter here to make up a little bit of time. To really let the terrain kind of dictate that too. I'm sure, has everybody done kind of some hunter paces or paper chases, and you're going for the optimum time, and they say, let the terrain decide? You can kind of use that to judge a little bit for endurance rides too.
So can you do this without I see all these fitness trackers and blah 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 and mapping things and GPS things. I mean, but realistically, without one, how do I know my horse is doing 5 miles an hour?
So you can, because obviously people have done it before. We had all these nifty gadgets. I mean, I like my gadgets, but if a lot of it, even on your phone, you can just kind of do it. Or if you go out on the trail and you're like, all right, I know this trail is a mile. I know this section of trail is a mile. How long is it going to take me to do this mile? This trail is 5 miles. Let's see. If I keep a steady pace, how long did I take to do those 5 miles? And if you're like, ooh, wow, I did that in 41 minutes, then you're booking along a little bit. If you're like, ooh, that took me 2 hours, like, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I do like my gadgets.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely if you're really trying to get a feel for how your horse paces, like you said, they're all, my horse is a really slow walker, so I know that I have to make up that distance where I have to walk with my trot, and if I get a nice stretch of footing, then I'm gonna canter, so it's just knowing your horse, knowing about how long it takes, and like you said, knowing if you know a stretch, or you have a time limit for it's 6 hours to complete a 25-mile ride. You could try and go out and do that and see, did you make it? And then if you're balanced or not. Now, conditioning we don't recommend is like going out and doing 25, like right then and there, but that's a way to figure it out.
What are the gadgets that you do like?
So mostly when I'm riding, I have a Garmin Instinct that I use. It says it's solar powered, so I can use it for a whole day. You can use it for 12 hours, and it's not gonna, the battery's not gonna die. And I can track with that, and I can just glance down and I can see the speed. I can see how far we've gone. When we get lost, it's got a map on it, and I can go back and track where I went and get back on course. That's what I use mostly. A lot of people, which Equilab, is that the one you use?
Equilab is one I use. I like that one. It's very equine specific. So like it'll even tell you, what stride were you trotting, were you cantering here. It'll measure your miles per hour. It'll map for you. It also has a safety tracker, which I really like because I ride alone a lot. So I can text when I start my ride. I can text my safety contacts and say I'm out, and it'll send them a notification when I make it home safe as well. So
Now, is
it's
that
nice
a smartwatchy looking thing, or is that an app?
It's an app.
It's an app.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also one called Ride Loop GPS. It is for mountain bikes. I use that one too, but I use it for trail well. But Ride with GPS, a lot of the endurance rides are starting to use that app, and they did a test one at the beginning of July that I did, and you can download the map beforehand, and it will tell you in a quarter mile you will turn right, and then it'll be like, bing, turn right here. It is awesome. Because while they are really well marked on the trails most of the time, sometimes you're thinking about, hey, like, is my boot still on? And you're looking down and you miss a marker, or you're chatting away with your friend that's on the ride with you and you don't see that marker there. Or occasionally we have vandalism on the trails. People don't like the horses out there and they'll come with markers at night and stuff like that. So they're trying to use this GPS, Ride with GPS, and it, I would say, I was kind of like, but then I did it and I was like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. This is a really good addition to our rides. So hopefully they'll start using that in some more rides too.
So you can use whatever technology you want in competition as well as training?
Yes. And a lot of people will use heart rate monitors.
I was going to ask about that.
I don't use one. I've been doing it long enough, I can kind of tell where my horse is at. And also everyone I've had, I just can't get them to work right. For AERC, they're totally legal. You can definitely use heart rate monitors. For ACTRA, you have to turn them off when you get into camp. And a lot of people will also use handheld stethoscopes too when they're, or handheld electronic ones versus a stethoscope, and those are totally legal too if you can find them for sale and if they work. I prefer traditional old-fashioned stethoscope because it always works, and when I lose it, I don't want to cry that I just lost this fancy tool because I just don't want. They grow legs and walk away. I got asked, what do you feed your horses that are competing? Because I know a lot of people seem to think that you have to feed these horses, and my guys are all on a forage-based diet. All of the ones that I have pretty much competed on are getting maybe a half pound a day of forage pellet with some vitamins, and that's it. And they all look like little tubby tanks right now. So you do not have to feed your horse a ton of grain for them to be able to have the energy to do this. Now, I mean, could you have a horse that you need to feed that much? Absolutely. Her horse right now is sheep horse with me, so he's getting a lot because he's got some dental issues. And he says he feels very good on all of that feed. Because
He's normally a very lazy temperament, but lately.
So it's really a lot of things with endurance. It is totally what works for you and your horse. They do have a lot of rules about supplements and medications. A lot more strict than pretty much any of the other disciplines. ARC has a whole drug appendix. It's a couple giant pages long. So I'm not going to go through all of it, but basically anything that you consider anti-inflammatory, any type of antibiotics, pretty much any medication is no. Although I believe they just Percent.
Yeah.
Yes,
Percent,
they
they
just
approved.
decided to approve Percent for the pushing horses. You can give UlcerGuard now in the preventative dose, but not the treatment dose. Because they do recognize that these horses are going to be stressed, they're trailering, they're camping, and they want them protected, but they feel that if you have a horse that's having to be treated for ulcers, then they shouldn't be out there doing 25-mile rides. But if anybody's interested, there's a whole list on the AERC website. And there's things you would never, MSM, you can't have your horse on MSM. Yes, yeah, your regular joint supplements without the MSM in them are fine. Yeah, a lot of them do adequate. You can't do a lot of therapies at the ride, and you have to stop cushion down. Those are ARC legal, not Ector legal. Ector is nothing. Fly spray, grooming products where they're supposed to be applied, not by putting cowboy magic on their elbows.
Yeah, you can't, and boots too, like I'm not talking like hoof boots, I'm talking protective leg boots and stuff you can't use if you're doing
Competitive trail.
Competitive trail.
For endurance, they do allow protective boots, like your sweat boots or flat boots. And a lot of people try to keep those super minimum because they hold in heat and you're going through a lot of rocks or sand and you're going to get like stuck in them. But there are horses that need them. My Arab wears hind boots because he will hit when he starts getting tired a little bit. I think that's pretty much the
Walker.
Oh yes, the Tennessee Walker that we brought his tag with us, he has to wear bell boots or he will not have any shoes by the end of the ride. And he can't wear hoof boots because those come off like immediately.
Are the Devonshires like mandatory, or is that just a safety precaution? Everybody, I don't know what they're called, but the cages on the front of the stirrup.
So yes, that's a good question. The cages on the stirrups. A lot of us wear sneakers to ride in. So they are a safety thing. They also, if you look at them, they're super, like they're deep and they have this very wide base. A lot of people kind of ride a little bit more with your feet a little more home when you're endurance riding because you're in the saddle for so long. And having the like little nubbies and the wide base helps the circulation in your feet going. I have ridden in regular English irons and it's not my favorite. Like my feet definitely notice.
My first ride, I think I rode in traditional paddock boots and regular English irons, and I could not feel my toes by the end of the ride. It was not recommended.
And even like when it gets cooler, I will wear half chaps, but I still wear running shoes for riding.
I do ride in these. These are like the carrot farm boots, so they still have a heel and stuff. I like the ankle support in them. I would ride in sneakers too, but that's, something that's not so constricting on your foot. You have a little more wiggle room in them.
I think there are people that come and will ride in full tall boots and breeches. So it really is whatever is most comfortable for you. And
Definitely have nothing new the
Yeah.
day of the ride. You're
There's a
breaking
saying
it.
in pretty much every endurance sport, whether I'm doing an ultra or I'm doing this, like do not change something and try something new the day of the competition. It's probably not going to work out for you very well. I mean, there's definitely people that do that, and then they're like, well, why do I have these blisters? Wow. That wasn't the time to try brand new shoes. But yeah, that's not everybody rides in cages, but a lot of people do ride in cages. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now that you've conditioned your horse and you've fed your horse and you're ready to go, camping. I know that's a big worry for a lot of people. How do you teach your horse how to camp? So ride camp most of the time is usually a big open field with a lot of horses. It's really busy. There's a lot of horses and trailers and people and dogs. And so if you want to try your fence set up at home before you go to the ride, that's usually a good idea. I personally use electric fence generally with step-in posts, and then they do make some step-in posts that are about 5 foot high, not the like short ones from Tractor Supply. And I usually run 3 strands of electric and get a little electric fencer that runs off of like batteries, and it'll last me a set of batteries will usually last an entire ride season. So it's not super expensive or anything, and they do make kits for it that you can get that's all together in one nice little bag, but it's about double the cost of just going out and buying pieces and putting them together. If you were going to try that setup, I would set it up at home first, inside a fenced area, and put your horse in it. Before you take them to a ride in the middle of the mountains in a wide open field, and they're like, oh my god, electric, bye, I'm out of here. Because that definitely happens. Laura uses like corral panels to explain your
Yeah,
of
mine are the, I don't know if you've seen the ads for them, the affordable pet products, panels, you can build them yourself, they send you like a kit and you can assemble them together, and they're basically like narrow piece, PVC piping, corral panels that can make, either two 10 by 10 stalls or a 20 foot round pen type area, and I attach that to my trailer. I have a horse whose temperament is very relaxed, and so he doesn't need electric, but you can get versions of it with electric if you need that double area protection. They're also really lightweight, as again, sometimes going to rides by myself, like I can carry them, like 3 of them over my shoulder by myself. So that is nice, and then they use those like the stakes, like Aaron was saying for the electric. You just stake them in and tie them, and then they hook to the trailer, and there you go. So if your horse needs a like I guess more visual barrier, that's a good option as well. And then some people also do high lines. That's another option.
the high lines, or I've done high ties in the past, which is like a arm that come off the side of your trailer with a kind of long rope that hangs off of it, and it gives them about the same room as a 12 by 12 stall. That's also one I would definitely suggest practicing at home and having a horse that is okay with not having any type of visual confinement. My mare that I used that mostly with was totally fine with it, would lay down with it, would roll with it, and she didn't care. My baby, I'm not sure that would be a good idea. She might be like, oh, well, bye, and then be like hit the end of it. So we're not at that point yet. But they are super nice in that they take no time to set up. When you get there, you unhook a little latch from the top of your trailer, and you're set up, and you don't have to put up an entire fence. Most rides, you will have at least like a 12 by 24 space to put your fence in. Some rides will have more space. Some rides they will direct your parking and will be sardined in. And they almost always have somebody, if you don't like to back your trailer, that will back your trailer for you.
Some rides even have stalls depending on the facility.
On Fair Hill, if you do like the Foxcatcher or the CTRs at Fair Hill, you can use the stalls. Go to the Rides of Vermont stalls. We are doing the USA Northeast Endurance is hosting a ride up at Penn State in September. There's flyers in all the bags about those specifically because we're also having a couple of big clinics that go along with that one. But we are offering stalls up there too.
Do you have to camp?
It depends. So if a lot of times we're traveling a long way. So if I'm driving like 8 hours, I can't get there the morning of. Like I'm gonna come in the night before, bed in. But like when I do Foxcatcher at Fair Hill and I board right off Fair Hill property and it's a 2-minute drive for me, I will go morning of. You just generally have to ask the ride manager, because that's will be able to vet you in the morning as opposed to the day before.
As far as yourself for camping too, you know, there are people that run the gamut from the people that do this every weekend and they have huge living quarters trailers to people like me that have a basic truck and trailer and you can either sleep in the back of your truck or in the tent. Some people even take old bumper poles and turn their dressing room into a little place with a cot and fan or put a sink or something in there, you know, so that's nice. Not everywhere has bathroom facilities. Sometimes it's porta potties, it's rustic. So it really depends on the ride.
And most places, I can't think of anywhere in our region that does not provide water.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
There's definitely rides outside our region where you have to haul in all the water you'll need, but our rides all have, of course, water available. Because you will use a lot of water on a ride. But, so I guess now we're at camp. And I guess the schedule would be the next go through. So once you get into camp, you get checked in, you get settled, your horse is in its containment. Usually the afternoon, day before, is your vetting. The vetting process is really pretty easy. When you get your rider packet, you will get your number livestock crayons, these I really like. They're tempera paint for like little kids because they come off really easy. The livestock paint, they always like hold on sometimes, no matter what you do to it. But it goes on both sides of your horse's hindquarters. There'll be a ride cart in your rider packet, and you want to carry that with you through the whole ride. When you're going to the vet check, you're going to hand it to the vet, and they are going to first watch you trot your horse out. For ARC, that's about, I think it's 50 feet out and back, just straight out and back. Working on the trot out ahead of time, you definitely want to do that. Your horse needs to trot nicely next to you, like on a pretty loose lead line. If you're having to really tighten that lead line, sometimes you can make them look a little lame because they've got their head tilted, and if they're rushing ahead of you or lagging behind you, like none of those things are going to give you great views for the vet to judge with. They will also just go over your whole horse. They'll do your initial pulse. A lot of times we'll do a body condition score. They will check gut sounds, the legs, hydration,
Capillary refill.
capillary refill. I think that is most of it. I'm sorry, I should have brought a back card so you guys can see.
Yeah, I think that now that's pretty much it. And yeah, I'll like note if there's any.
And they'll write that all down, and they'll score you from A to F. And if they see something where they're like, your horse is lame, they're not gonna let you start. If they see something where your horse might be a little, like, they're like, did they step on a rock on the trot out? Like, it's something not, like, they might ask you to represent in the morning before you go out, just to double check that you're safe. And then that's pretty much the betting. Take your card back, you're done. Most rides are gonna do dinner that night. Sometimes they're potluck, sometimes they bring in pizza, sometimes they make a whole fancy spread. Sometimes they're what they call no frills, and they don't do anything. You just bring your chair to the ride meeting and they don't feed you. They'll do a ride meeting, and they'll explain all the trails for the next day. They'll tell you, okay, if you're doing the 25, you're gonna do the blue loop, for example, that is 15 miles, and then you're gonna do the white loop that's 10 miles, is your second loop. They'll also give you your pulse parameters. Most of the time for an LD, the pulse parameters are 64 at the hold, and then 60 at the end. If the vet wants to change something about that, the vet will get up and talk, and they will tell you if the pulses are different. So it's really important, especially if they're the first couple of rides you're going to do, that you want to make sure you make the ride meeting. They also might tell you about anything in particular on the trail that's like, hey, at mile 18, there's a bee's nest, avoid the left side of the trail. Or there's a tree down at this area, so we rerouted like this little part. So all that information will be at a ride meeting too. And then most people generally head back and go to bed pretty early because we like to get up and get moving early before it gets hot. Anything you want to add to the day before?
No, I don't think so.
Can you talk a little bit more about the grading, like the A through F part? Like, is it something where you're expecting generally that most horses are going to be a B or an A or a C? Like, I understand that there's probably like passing versus failing, but what would you expect and aim to get?
I would expect all A's.
Okay, thank you.
I can't think that I've personally had any vet-ins that didn't start out all A's.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes somebody might get a B on gut sounds if you just got off the trailer, went to the vet and the horse didn't eat lunch or something on the ride, or was a little stressed, and sometimes they'll give you an opportunity to come back. They'll say like, go let them eat a little bit, let them drink, and then come back and we'll see if they have any concerns. But
what happened in the process on the time you took Xander to Broxton?
To Broxton, yeah. So I decided to do a ride at Broxton Bridge, which is down in South Carolina, which is a pretty good haul from here. I think it took us about 14 hours in the trailer to get there, and took him down. He trailered really well and everything. When we got there, they saw he was kind of off in his hind, and for the trot out, and they explained they're like, there's something just off, and we can't let him start. And it was that really that helped me discover. I didn't know he had some minor arthritic changes in his hocks, and that long trailer ride brought it to light. We wouldn't have seen it otherwise. So sometimes you do that, and it's disappointing and stuff. But I think it's really important and looked well upon by the staff there that you show that you put your horse first. You don't argue with the vet, like they know what they're doing, and wanting what's best for your horse. So I just put him back and let him eat and chill, and I stayed, and I ended up crewing for one of the really high up riders that's someone that competes in the 100, and it was an opportunity. I took it as a learning opportunity to crew for them and see how they handled their horse and what they did. So it wasn't a wasted trip, but that was an instance where they're gonna notice, and vets that come, they do this all the time, and they have really good, well-trained eyes for lameness and other issues, metabolic issues, things like that. So.
And they want to get your horse through it.
Yeah, they want you to be successful, and if they're like, this isn't gonna go well for you, this is a sandy terrain, you can't start out sore, so.
So usually how the morning of works, a lot of people get up really early and do their horses 2 to 3 hours before the start, so that you're not feeding them, getting a big rush of sugar, and getting on and doing a mass start with a bunch of horses. I don't usually do that because they don't get enough feed for me to worry about that. But I do like to go really slowly with tacking up, and I don't want to make them feel rushed or be excited about what we're doing. I want them to be like, yeah, they're just going out for a trail ride. Some rides, I'll use the fox catcher again, for example, start you in an open field. So for a new horse, that can be a lot, even for some horses that have been doing this a long time. An open field with a whole bunch of horses, and they say go, and you'll have some people that go, and some people walk out. But you can, if you want to, hold back, and stay back at your trailer for an extra 5 minutes and leave then. And that is totally fine. I believe you have 15 minutes before you have to cross the start line. So if you know that your horse is not going to be comfortable with a situation like that, totally stay back and let your horse go out at a nice walk and not in the group of horses. Some rides do what they call a controlled start. And a lot of times that happens if you have a tight, narrow space where you're starting the ride, or you might be starting the ride through private property, and they don't want you running across somebody's lawn. They want you to stay on this specific trail. They want everybody single file. They will put a lot of times they'll put an ATV or car in front of you, and have everybody kind of line up and trot out together. So they're keeping everybody kind of compacted, and then when you get to a certain point, they will let you go ahead and go. Or you can have, some of the places have, like the ride I just did in July called Muckleratch, it's just outside of Harrisburg, and you are starting out on a dirt road through the mountain, and people kind of let the front runners go, and then you kind of can file out behind them. I personally really like that. It's contained. You've got trees on both sides of you. You're focusing your horse forward. But yeah, any of them, like I said, you can stay back a little bit. And do whatever's best for your horse. And a lot of those people who are gonna start towards the end will also be taking it easy at the beginning, and just letting their horse go slow. Usually the hundreds will go out first. A lot of times it's 5 to 6 a.m. As soon as it might think about getting light, then the 50s, then 25s, and then usually, if you're gonna do an intra ride, which is usually like 10, 12 miles, that would be another hour or so later, but they will give, start times at the ride meeting the night before. Once you get tacked up and get ready for your start time, they have, a timer, usually with a giant clock, at the start finish line, and you have to tell them, usually about 10, 15 minutes before the start, that yes, you are gonna go out on the ride. So you can send somebody, if you have somebody with you, send them up, tell them number 7 is going out on the ride. Because if you don't check in, they don't think you went out on the ride. We don't have like chip timers or anything like they do on marathons or anything like that. So you have to tell them that you are coming in. You go out, you do your first loop, however many miles that is. Come back in. Some people, depends on your horse. I usually try to walk at least the last half mile in. I have heavier breeds. They don't pulse down as fast as the Arabs do. They're a little more bigger muscled, and it takes longer to pull them down. So if I can give them that half mile in to not be trotting or cantering and just chill, sometimes I'll even get off and walk, loosen the girth, maybe drop a bit out of their mouth, which also helps their costs come down. Sometimes I do that, depends on the train or which horse it is. Some people trot straight into camp, and I can do that on my Arab, and his pulse will be down in like 2 minutes. What you used to do?
Yeah, I usually do that if I can walk that last bit as well, just to have a head start on that pulsing down. And like I said, I'm there to try and finish, not to win the race. So.
Well, and you know, when you talk about everybody like go and everybody sort of bailing out and people bailing in, I would think, you know, that you get the brace sprain in the horse as well, which could be not a good thing.
Yes, that can definitely get that race brain thing started. A lot of the people that are going out and going fast from the beginning are people that have been doing it a long time. I actually had a catch ride for somebody last year in the classic catch ride. At the very last minute, the day before, she said, "Can you come ride my horse in the 50?" I said, "Absolutely," because I knew that she was a rider that has so much experience and so many miles, and I was really excited to ride her horse and ride with her and pick her brain. And she kept apologizing that we were going slow, and I'm like, "I've never gone this fast in my life." And we did 50 miles in just under 7 hours, and that included our time in the best and that was fast.
You get 12 hours to do it, so that tells you how much time they shaved.
And her horses just were like, "Okay, we go fast now. Okay, we walk now. Okay, we're in camp." They knew the routine so well. It was really awesome to get to ride that type of horse and get that experience. When you come into the vet check, so we've got your horse in there. This is what I call my crew setup. Some people bring everything but the kitchen sink. I'm a little bit more minimalist because most of the time I'm by myself and I don't want to carry that much stuff because the career is usually pretty far away from where you end up parking. Every once in a while you get super lucky and you cruise your trailer and you don't have to carry anything anywhere. So my handy dandy purple magic wagon goes everywhere with me, and it can like get paddled. So I have to tipped it over, but what I usually do for my setup, because I generally only have one horse, I would also have a canopy that I did not bring that I set up over here. So that is another thing. If you want to have a canopy somewhere, I would practice that with your horse too. Getting them under it and not getting them tangled in the feet of it and stuff. I set this up so one has like mash in it and one has like chopped hay in it, so that they can eat and keep their head up a little bit, and then all the side buckets will be filled with water. If I have a crew person, which is awesome, one of us will be on each side, just sponge, as much water as I can get on, because like I said, my guys are heavy muscled and they're hot. if I'm by myself, pretty much all of my horses, except for my Arab, ground tie. And I can just drop the rope. They will stick their head in the buckets and eat, and I can do the sponging myself. That's the ground tying is a great thing to work on. That's like a good skill to have before you get there, especially if you end up going by yourself and you're like, uh-oh, I need to do this, or uh-oh, I need to do that. Like having your horse be able to just stand there and relax and just eat. We want to get all the food and all the water in them that we can. I will also do electrolytes. I don't want to get super into electrolytes because as you do more and more, it can be really, really involved with everybody making up their own kind of formula. But my basic pattern is I do electrolytes the night before. I do electrolytes in the morning before we start out. I do them every 10 miles of the ride. So if I know my loop is 15 miles, I'll carry one syringe. If it's 20 miles, I carry 2 syringes with me. If it's really hot and humid today, I'll probably carry an extra one. Then I do them. If I've got a horse that I can't get their pulse to come down, I will probably do it while I'm sponging. If my horse's pulses come down, I'm going to do it after we come through the vet check. Because some horses, giving them electrolytes where they're like, no, I don't want that, it's going to make their pulse jump back up. So it's another, you got to learn your horse and what they think about having that done. I will say we practice even electrolyting at home. I practice with either carrot baby food or applesauce so that they don't think this is the most horrible thing ever. Sometimes it's tasty. And I usually do add something like honey or date syrup to the electrolytes when I give them, and then I always wash their mouth out with water after I give them. Because if you think about just putting a mouthful of salt in yourself, you can get like blisters and stuff in your mouth from that, and you don't want the inside of their mouth to be sore. Plus it like rinses all the like Q off of them because you are going to be wearing electrolytes before the end of the ride, definitely. What with my Arab, I know I do less. What do you and Xander?
I find, talking about breeds and horses that can do this, it's true. Arabs are probably the most popular breed because they're just made for long distance across hot climates. Like that's what they do, right? But that doesn't mean that other breeds can't do it successfully. Again, you have to tailor the program to your horse. Xander doesn't need a ton, but I also sometimes I choose for my own comfort too to just go to cooler rides. Like I don't go to the ones where it's like this every time. I'll go in the fall or in the spring instead. So and he does really well. So it really just it depends on. I watch how much he's sweating. I watch how much he's drinking, and I kind of just base it on that too. So that's similar to you.
That's it. Cool trick that I've taught most of my horses. I can electrolyte them from the saddle, and I don't have to get down. They have learned that if I reach up and tap the left side of their neck twice, they turn their head back around to get it. We start with just treats, and they get a treat like that every single time I get on them. So they are always extremely willing to be like, yes, please. But if you are in a place out on the trail where it might be a little more difficult to get on, or people are going quickly by you or something, it's super handy to be able to just tap tap. Here you go. It's a fun thing to teach your horses. It works really great with like liquor training and stuff too. So you've got your horse hydrated, cooled down, their pulse is at least minimum or maximum of 64. You're gonna head to the vet check. So when you came through the timer line, you got a little card. It's gonna have what time you crossed the line coming on. Make sure you keep that card. A lot of people keep little Ziploc baggies with them because there's so much water and electrolytes and stuff, sweat flying around that they're gonna get their paper for it soggy and they're gonna get dripped. So I always have a Ziploc bag that goes in my breeches pocket with my ride card and any kind of cards I get. You have a half an hour from the time that you came in and crossed the line don't want to use a whole half hour. I mean, you can if you need to, but you want to get through as quick as you can. When you go up to the vet check, some of them will have people that are just taking pulse. You hand them your card, they will take your pulse, and they'll write that time down on the card as long as you are 64 or below. And then you're gonna go in and do the same vetting process you did at the beginning. You're gonna do that again. You're gonna trot up and back. They're gonna check gut sounds, capillary refill, muscle tone, any mixed cuts, scrapes. They will check their back to make sure they're not getting back sore. Sometimes they do not have pulse people, and they will tell you just go straight to the vet, and the vet will take your pulse for you. A lot of times depends on how many volunteers they have to do that stuff. The night before, they will have told you how long your hold is, and your hold time starts when you pulse down. So say you pulse down at 11:30 in the morning, and you have a 40-minute hold. So then your out time is 12:10. That's when you can get back on and head back out. You cross the line, go back on your second, and that's your out time.
So if you're coming in to be pulsed and say you're not at 64, will they just come back in 5 minutes, or are you kind of done at that point?
Most of the time they will tell you that's not quite it. The vets might give you a minute or two if it's the vets doing it. The lay people taking your pulse will usually be like, go around again.
Okay.
But you really do want to make sure your horse is down. And there's some things you can do to help your horse get their pulse down, like walk really slowly to the vet, kind of let them put their head down, graze a little bit. I have one mare that wouldn't pulse down until I let her roll. Like she wanted to roll every time, and I mean I figured out that was the key, that's what would drop her pulse really fast. Some horses get really itchy from sweaty, and if you like let them rub their face on a rag or something like that, it'll help their pulse. It's one of those things you have to figure out, like, what is my horse's cue? Really, if your horse has to pee, their pulse is going to be high a lot of times. So if you walk them in tall grass, if you're like, hey, they look kind of like antsy, that will drop your horse's pulse a lot of times. Like I said, I don't want to really get into the super fine points of electrolytes, but you can use electrolytes in certain ways to help your horse's pulse come down. Does Xander have any particular tricks?
No, but I'm lucky. He's usually like 50.
Yeah, the Arabs are really nice. Like my little Arab, I got really, really lost on a ride in South Carolina. Apparently we don't have good luck in South Carolina.
No.
And I did 36 miles instead of 25 miles. Like really lost. We still came in under time, and we cantered the last 4 miles into the vet check. And I got off him, and we pulsed down in 2 minutes to 42. He was just like, yeah, fine, whatever. My Arabs or my mornings would have been like, I'm tired. And it would have taken me a half hour. But yeah, it's really knowing your horse. Endurance is a lot of time spent with your horse and learning your horse. And then you're basically going to repeat the process again. You're going to go out on your last loop. Usually the second loop, and I'm mainly addressing doing the LBs because I'm assuming if you guys are going to do it, you would probably start with the LBs. It's usually shorter. The second lap is shorter than the first lap. I think I've only ever done one ride where it wasn't, and they had to like reroute stuff, like they had changed the trail the night before because of a storm that had happened. And this time when you come back into the vet, same thing, you're gonna do your brewery, get your pulse down. For Elvin, your pulse is probably in 60 this time instead of 64. Go back through that process and you were finished, and hopefully they will be like, yay, completion. After that, I usually spend a good hour or two probably still in camp, even if I'm gonna trailer out, just letting my horse kind of chill out, and like, kind of like you would after you just like ran like big long ways. You just kind of want to be like, before they have to get on the trailer. A lot of times they will have days in a row. So that's more likely you're gonna have some type of dinner and ceremony or something the night of.
If you happen to get top 10, you do have the option to stand for an additional award called best condition, where your horse is evaluated to more stringent criteria, involving also trot circles and lunging and everything like that. They weigh you and your tack and everything, and it's because riders are also graded in a weight category. So when you register to become a member of AERC, you join a weight class, kind of like boxers or wrestlers do. And then you go and you get everything weighed because they take all of that into account for the horse's effort. And then if you choose, and you don't have to stand for it if you don't want to, but you can. And if you do, then they'll name a horse that came in the top 10 as best condition of the ride. And that's, you know, something that's pretty prestigious, sought after, I think, and everybody's
Sometimes
proud
it's
of.
the horse that won, but a lot of times it's not.
Yeah.
And then the horse in the top 10, it looks like he is ready to go back out and do that 25 miles again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always the first place maker.
On to the second age. Okay. So kind of going back to the trail part a little bit, people have asked, how do I not get lost on trail? I've definitely gotten lost on trail, and I'm really good at not getting lost, but I don't know, my brain just sometimes, I'm like, go, 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 and it just leaves. Most of the time, markers are gonna be ribbons, in this area, and they're gonna be on your right. So if all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, all these ribbons are on my left, you are going the wrong way. A lot of times at every turn, there will be something like an arrow on a pie plate, or we even have like plywood arrows that are pointing you. They'll usually be like a ribbon right before the turn, arrow, and then another ribbon, and then a confidence ribbon. Other than that, the standard is to mark every 25 miles, that's wrong. Every quarter of a mile. If you're on a straightaway or like on a trail where there's no turns off, it's gonna be marked every quarter of a mile. A lot of rides have started, if you're going along and you're like, I could turn that way, they're like, no, there'll be a sign. It says, do not enter, don't go that way.
Especially if you're gonna wander into someone's private property or
Yes.
something. Double ribbon can also signify a turn.
Yeah. I found it started not using that as much.
Yeah, it's not as obvious.
Yeah. They don't want you to get lost, and they really like to, at the end of the ride, it's like, this ride was so well marked, I could have walked it blind. Like, they want you to say things like that at the end of the ride. So they try really hard. But we all get lost. Most times also, they will give you a phone number of the trail master who's laid the trail out, or the ride manager at the ride meeting, so that you have it if you are lost and have a problem on trail. Speaking of problems on trail, so if your horse suddenly gets lame on trail, and you are out in the middle of nowhere, I know that's a question that comes up too. A lot of times, if you can, they will tell you to maybe get off and walk your horse to the next spot where they can come and pick you up with their like ambulance trailer. I've never been out there where I had somebody that I couldn't like get to somewhere, but I mean it would be like regular rescue type stuff if you had some kind of major catastrophe, but always make sure you get that ride managers. And also chances are somebody else is gonna be out there and gonna be passing you, or you're with somebody, and that can be a big help too.
Yeah, most people are really, really thoughtful, and it's trail etiquette too. You know, you don't just breeze past someone you can see is struggling, you stop, and it doesn't matter. If you might lose some time, you stop and help your fellow rider and horses and everything. There's also checkpoints where there's people that are volunteers out there that, as you go by them periodically, they might have snacks for you, water for you, or it might be a little spot, not necessarily a hold or vet check, but where you can sponge or get water, especially when there's not a lot of natural water sources out there. But you'll call your number as you ride by, so you don't have to stop. You can keep going, but just say like, I'm number 78. and they'll mark you down that they know you've gotten at least to that point. And then they also have drag riders as well.
Yeah, some rides will have drag riders that will come through at the very end of the ride, to make sure everybody is getting left out there. That's why it's really important to tell them you are going out on trail before you start, and to make sure things like if you come back in at the middle and you're like, oh, I do not want to go out on route 2, like this was a lot, or hey, I don't feel good, you just tell somebody that you aren't going back out so that they don't go looking for you. That also gets into things like whether you're rider optioning or something, and they will, even if you aren't going to continue, they're going to check the vet's going to check your horse to make sure that everything's okay with them before you. I think that's pretty much the gist of most of it. Are there more questions?
So, if I do my due diligence and read the rule book and the blah 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 blah, can I do this by myself? Just show up at like an LD and do it?
Yep, absolutely. That is exactly how I did it.
Okay.
I did my first ride in 2000, and I had a friend who said, "Oh, your horse would be an awesome endurance battle," and I said, "Okay, well, that's great." And I conditioned with her, and she said, "I'll ride with you at the ride," because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't read the rules or anything before I went, because there was nothing really online at that point in time, and like I was 21, and I didn't have extra money to pay for the sending of a book, and like all right, I went. So the first thing I did when I got there, I was really early because I didn't want to be late, really early, like, and it wasn't very far away. It was only up in Unionville. And I parked in this nice, flat, shaded spot, and then people started arriving, and then the judges and the vets arrived, and they're like, you're parked in the vetting area, you have to move. So I had to pick everything up and move it, and then my friend didn't show up. She didn't show up, and I didn't have a cell phone. So the next day I asked somebody, like, hey, like, what am I doing? And I just went out, and they were like, just follow the ribbons, you'll be fine. Just do what everybody else does. Okay, so I did it. And we got back, and we finished the ride, and she scored great. You have an extra, it was a CTR. You start out with 100 points, and we finished with 96, so I would say that's a win. I've never been that sore in my entire life because I had no idea what was going on. But I loved it, and I was addicted to it, and here I am now, 25 years later.
I've been doing it for a lot less time than Erin. I got introduced to it first. I got introduced to it by Erin, and her horses and everything. And I think also having done so many other different disciplines, I grew up in different lesson barns, and I did hunters, and I did, stuff in college, I did HSA, I did a lot of variable things. And the endurance community is a very welcoming one. And if you don't know what you're doing, people are more than happy to sit down and help and share their knowledge. I remember when we went to Old Dominion the first time, and we had just a bunch of people, they just said, come over, let's sit in a circle in the grass and ask questions. And it was a veterinarian there, and
People that have done multiple hundreds of
people that are like
highest mileage people in
elite
sport.
in this sport. We're sitting there like, so
Let's go all sit in the grass, and we're gonna talk about what electrolytes we use and how you got the distance, and like it was completely unplanned, and that's very much the feel of rides. I mean, of course you always might have some random other person, but just ignore them and come hang out and happy us. People also are very, like, if you get there and you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? I'm new. Somebody will like take you by the hand and be like, do this, and this. So don't be, if you go to a ride, do not be afraid to ask. Volunteering at a ride is a great way to get started, because it can kind of seem like a little bit of chaos if you don't know what's going on when you first get there, and you're like, all these people and all these horses and trailers and everything are everywhere, and there's ropes everywhere, and where I'm supposed to go, and just ask somebody or volunteer, and you'd be like, okay, there is a rhythm to this. There is a ride coming up really close to here in September, the Chesapeake Fall Ride. It is a great starter ride. It's a competitive trail ride. Are you still planning on doing it? Yay, I'm so excited. I want to say they have a 10, a 15, and a 25, or a 2-day 50. They also are always looking for volunteers. It's a good one to start out with too because they have stalls and you, actually you can't camp. You can camp, but your horse can't camp because of fair hill schools. They have to be in the stalls. You can also, if you're local, come in the morning hour, and they're really accommodating about that.
Can you say the name of that again?
The Chesapeake Fall. And it is September 20th and 21st. And then, and that is extra, so it's a competitive trail ride. They also are doing a competitive trail drive there. They had Aquathon and Riding Tie too, so they kind of have it all there. And then USA Northeast Endurance is hosting a ride. It's a place called Ag Progress Days. It is a little farther away. It's up near Penn State in Rockfront State Forest. But we are going to be offering some free clinics as well as 2 different intra rides, plus the regular rides, Riding Tie and Aquathon. Definitely plugging this one because I'm helping run that one. And it's a brand new ride. We're really excited. It's an excellent campgrounds. They have, as far as I heard, they have like real bathrooms and stuff, which is always a plus. They do have stalls for camping. And I put in the packets there is the entry flyer for that ride is in there if anybody is interested in the ride or volunteering for that ride.
So if you do a ride in a weekend, how much time do you give your horse off afterwards when you get it going?
So usually the rule of thumb is like a day per 10 miles. A 25, a lot of times I'll give them about a week off just because it just kind of works out that way. A 50, I would probably give them a full week off and then do a really light week. I know a lot of people who, if they do get into hundreds, will just do 100 every like 6 weeks and pretty much not do anything in between once your horse is really fit. That's something that's really different from other disciplines is that we don't tend to ride as much, and so we just have multiple horses so we can ride a lot.
Yeah, because I think it's important, especially the higher distances. I've heard people say as well. It's not even just about the physical rest, but the mental rest. It's a lot that we ask of them to do out there, and so it's good for their minds and their bodies to have a break, and also longevity. There's even awards in AARC as well for like longest longevity teams, horse and rider teams that they've been, the same horse and rider doing this for 20 years. That shows that the person's really taking care of their horse, right?
They have a really cool award called a Decade Award.
Yeah.
And it is the same horse, same rider, has done 10 years, has done a 50 for 10 years. That's kind of like my goal. I really want to do that. So I'm hoping my Morgan baby is my one to do that on.
So have you ever had a horse that just hated this?
Yes, absolutely. And I sold her last year. Like we just didn't fit.
Like you and she didn't fit, or she just
did
didn't
not,
like?
She did not fit with endurance.
Okay.
She's a really nice Rocky Mountain mare, and the first year she was fantastic. Like we went out and we did a lot of rides. It was my first ride at. We keep talking about Old Dominion. It's also called the Beast of the East. It's one of the hardest rides on this coast, and I'd never done it before. She came from Lower Delaware. She'd never been in like crazy Rocky Mountain type stuff. And we won our weight division. And I was like, what? I did my first 50 on her down in a place called Iron Mountain. And then the following year she had Lyme, and she just started she got super race brainy. And with it or not, but like every ride we started going to, even after we'd done the full treatment for it, it just, all she wanted to do was fight about it, and she would run through me at the vet checks, and like she was just miserable the entire time we were there. And I'm like, this isn't, it's not fair to her. I don't like this. She doesn't like this. So she's hanging out with a pleasure rider in Kentucky now and taking her all over the mountains. And totally chill and happy. She's packed little kids around, but she did not want to be an endurance horse, and that's fine. I mean, not every horse is gonna fit, and I was very glad to find the right fit for her.
The opposite end of the spectrum too is sometimes they don't want to go, like I have to be a little strategic with my guy. I value him highly because he's a great all-around horse. I can go, and I've been a little competitive in the LDs with him. I've done a 50, but I rider optioned out of that, which you have the option to do as well. Like even if the vet says they can continue, they're not perfect, but they can go. If you know your horse best, and if you feel it's best for them to pull, you pull them out yourself, right? Or if you don't feel good. Anyway. But he is not very well motivated once he finishes his first loop. If the hold is back at the trailer, he's like, I'm done. And he shuts his brain off. His body, he's very athletic, he has the energy to go, but he's like, I just don't want it anymore. And he'll be a push ride the rest of the time, and that's exhausting. And that's what happened at our first 50 was I did plan for one where there was an away hold. A lot of times because it's not back at the trailer, they'll be like, okay, we can keep going. So if you have a horse like that, that's a good thing to shoot for, I think. But yeah, he at that ride he also lost his shoe. He had to take a break at the farrier, and his mind just was like, I'm relaxed, like I'm ready to go to sleep and take a nap. And yeah, it's hard to get him back up to that again. But I mean, he'll eat up an LD or a competitive trail ride like a champ, and that's the distance he likes. So that's generally what we do. Also what my schedule allows for. But yeah, they're not all gonna be hundreds. Can you take a horse? And yes, it's always encouraged to go out and try it. If you succeeded in some LDs, or if you have a horse that's like really athletic, really fit already, like you think has a good temperament for it, you don't have to start with an LD. You could try to train for 50 off to that. But there's just again, the whole premise that we've come back to this whole time is know your horse, have that relationship with your horse, and do what's best for both of you.
And that did bring up something I wanted to touch on real quick. We talked about way holds. So a lot of times your hold's gonna be back where you park your trailer. But sometimes they have away holds that are gonna be in a totally different spot. If you have crew and the away hold can have crew, they'll take all your stuff with them, set it up there. If I know I have away hold, I usually pack double so that I can have stuff there and stuff back and have it all set up, because you don't want them to have to move everything and fill buckets and book. Like, it's just easier to have two setups. Sometimes they won't allow crew at the away hold, and they'll have some volunteers there, and the ride management will move your stuff for you. They'll give you like a bag the night before. You generally have a size and weight limit that you can pack. And a lot of times if they do that, they will provide you some hanging grain and stuff like that at the hold. Sometimes they even have like buckets and stuff there for you, so you don't have to pack a ton of stuff that they're trying to drag around. But generally you put it all in this bag, you label the bag, you put it in their truck or trailer or whatever they have to transport. And then when you get there, you're like, hey, that's my bag. But it sounds complicated, but it's really not that complicated. And they'll have, if you don't have a crew, they'll have people there to help you hold your horse, like if you want to run to the bathroom or you need to do something. And
I like away holds also for like my mentality of it. It's rides that have like, if you look at the trails and you can get an idea of what the ride's gonna look like, or talk to someone who's been to it before, like rides that have a lot of repetitive loops because maybe they just don't have the land. So like you're in a 50, but you're doing the same loop 3 times. Like that plays with your head too a little bit, because you're like, I know where I am, I know how much further I go, and you obsess over it. So if you're that kind of person that kind of gets that way, choosing a ride where the trails are all different every time and stuff can really help you keep your mental game up and and also just focus on taking care of yourself really well.
And you get to see more cool trail, and you have away holds, and it's you're not just doing a repetitive not gonna know what it feels like until you do it. And once again, I'm gonna let you talk about this because I would like you to talk about the first ride I took you on, which I believe was a 15 up in New Jersey. It was this spring ride. It's called the Bunny Hop.
The Bunny Hop, yeah.
Yes.
And and Esme was feeling really good that day. That's her Morgan mare, the one she says everybody gets to start on. She took good care of me, but I had never been where I had trotted that much in succession for that long. And I got off the horse and I was able to complete the trot out and everything. And I had to sit down, like when we got back to the trailer, and I was so glad she was there because I was like, I did not know it was gonna be like my legs were dead. And then when we got in the truck to drive home, I fell asleep. Like immediately, I was unconscious. Like I did not realize how taxing. I didn't during the ride. I felt great. Like I didn't have any issues with that. It was just the aftermath. And so I imagine the horses maybe feel like that sometimes too. You know, like we need to crash a little bit.
I do a lot of training myself personally. I don't think everybody needs to do quite that much, but it, like being able to like get up and walk and doing some mobility work and stuff really will help you. And just getting out there and trotting up and down hills and stuff like that. If you are not used to trotting downhill, and you're going to do a ride with a lot of rolling hills, practice a little bit of trotting downhill, because it's going to use totally different muscles than any of the other trotting you do.
Iron Mountain, where did it have that 6 mile downhill?
Yep.
And it was just like a circle around the mountain. I was like, is it ever going to end?
So yeah, I mean, you don't have to be like Wonder Woman or anything, but I would definitely work a little bit on rider fitness too, just because you don't want to feel miserable and sore at the end of it.
I take an ibuprofen the night before too. I preload with my ibuprofen. So.
Yeah, and the beds they don't care what you look like at the end. Yeah. You don't have to bed in yourself at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there will be people there, like if you are like, oh my god, I can't run for this trot out, or I'm gonna make my horse look awful if I somebody will run your horse for you. I do it a lot for people. It's not a big deal. Just ask, hey, is there anybody that minds trotting my horse for me? Yeah, that is pretty much just it. Any more questions?
So like on the other end of the training for distance spectrum, like an intro ride for, it's 10 miles. Just doing the math, my horse is trotting is closer to the 12-mile-an-hour trot than the 6-mile-an-hour trot. And right now she's trotting about 30 minutes a day, which works out to roughly half of the, five-ish miles. And you said half of the distance for one trot. Is this something that is kind of reasonable to go to? Just go and try an intro ride without doing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. If you can go out there and currently trot for 30 minutes straight, yes.
Okay. Cool. All right.
What does the LD stand for?
Limited distance. So it can be 25 or 30. I want to say maybe there's a 35 or 2, but not in our region. So yeah, they're all 25s or 30s.
I've heard that newbies might be better off starting out with CTRs than endurance because it's a little bit more stringent. So if you can do this with this set of rules, endurance rides are just a little bit more open. Does that mean, or not really?
I think it kind of just depends on you and your horse a little bit. One thing that is nice about the CTRs is you don't go out in a big group. You go out in groups of up to 5, and you're spaced apart. Like, if you're going out solo, there'll be a minute between you and the next person. If you're going out with 2 people, there'll be 2 minutes, like up to 5 minutes between you and the next group. So that's really helpful. Also, the judging is a lot more thorough, as you'll have what they call a lay judge, who's you'll have a veterinarian judge, and then you'll have a lay judge that's not a veterinarian, and they will go over every inch of your horse. And like the first couple couple times I did that, like, it almost felt insulting to me. Like, and they were like, yours flinched when I went like this. But okay. Like that's not what they just want a baseline before, and so if they poke them again when you get back and they flinch the same way, then you're all good. They're not saying like there's something wrong with your horse, they just want to notice everything about your horse.
Pre-existing scratches, cuts, breaks, scars, anything like that.
And also, like if your horse has some kind of scrape, scratch before you start, when I walk into a vet, whether I'm doing AERC or extra, I will be like, hey, they've got a rub on the inside of their left fetlock. Just, even though the vet is probably going to see that on their own, I just want to point it out so it's marked down on my rider card before I ever start. Because I don't want them to be like, oh wait, that wasn't there. So it's always a good idea to point things like that out in the beginning.
It's good for she said about the CTRs too that have the pacing window. Like you can come in too fast or you can come in too slow, and there's an optimum window you're supposed to be in. So it's a good way to learn how to pace your horse as well when you're going for completion in AERC. Even though that regulation isn't there for AERC, it's a good way to just do that optimum pace to take care of it.
Yeah, if you do the optimum pace for CTR, you will be fine in the time for AERC. And with the rides, if you want to go out and ride with somebody, like you're going by yourself and you're like, hey, my horse would do better with a buddy, or I really want to just pair off with somebody, go on the ride entry page on Facebook or something and ask. Just be like, hey, I'm brand new, I'm doing this. Is there anybody that would start out riding with me? And there's probably going to be people that will say yes, but there is also a big motto at our AERC, it's ride your own ride. So like if you start out and you're like, hey, this pairing of these two horses is not working, everybody will totally understand it. You're like, okay, we gotta go our separate ways.
It could be because of behavior or because they don't pace well or anything like that. We tried to do a ride together before with her really fast walking horse here, and I said my Erica's got a slow walk, and so when we did need to walk, she's way, and it was driving her horse crazy to wait for him, and then he was, it was just not good, and it's like, just go, it's okay.
Another question then, actually. What is the etiquette around horses that are not necessarily great with other horses in their space? Is that a horse that you don't bring to an endurance ride?
No, you can. You definitely want to use your ribbons.
Yeah.
The red for if you've got somebody who's got a little bit of space behind end.
Yeah.
Green if it's their first ride is a great one too. And people generally when they come up on you will be like, can I pass? So like my baby's first ride, and I say yes, but I also kind of pulled her off the trail and turned her butt away from them, just because we hadn't worked a lot on passing, and she was fine. And a lot of times, if you have a green horse, you can say something like, yes, you can pass, but can you please walk? This is their first ride. And people will, for the most part, respect that. They're not going to go blasting past you. If you're fine with them passing you, people will pass you at a trot, but they're gonna, like, nobody's coming out there gonna, like, ride you.
Okay, cool.
Question.
Yes.
For the one that I'm doing, do I need to get this little marker thing so I can write my number on?
They usually have some
Okay.
there. I like these ones because they write easier than the ones they have.
Okay. And then
There, and I like my own color.
Is it gonna leave it, like, am I gonna be able to get it off, cause we have a show the next week?
I will send you a link to this kind
Okay,
of thing.
that would be
that
great.
you can watch.
Yeah, because we have a regional show the next week.
Yes, and you don't want the giant, like, 7A on your, yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Can you send that out to everyone? Because I would be very interested in that
Yes,
as well.
absolutely.
And then, do I need all of this stuff too?
So I would make sure you at least have,
I mean, I'm just gonna have, like, the 10 mile.
yeah, a couple buckets to have like sponge water. It's nice to have them on both sides, just so you're not like dragging a bucket around with you while you're trying to do that, but it's not necessary. I usually try and keep a separate bucket for drinking water versus sponging water, so that it's not like full of fly spray or something, and then like, that's gross.
Yeah.
And then I usually offer hay and some type of like wet alfalfa pellets, wet beef pulp, and throw in something super tasty in it. I have one mare who refuses to eat except for carrots and holes. I don't know if that's what she's done for ages. So she gets a 5-pound bag of carrots. Because she'll eat them.
Yeah. Yes, she should eat well.
But you just, like, you want to have a little bit of something in their stomach. You can also, it's going to be at Fair Hill, there's a lot of good grazing,
Okay.
Which is a lot of times the best thing for them to eat.
Okay.
But yeah, something for them to eat, something for them to cool them down. And I just like the table because I like set stuff all over it, but you don't have to do any of that.
And then I
stuff.
would set this up like before I go.
Yes.
Okay. In the designated area.
You can do the designated area, the Fair Hill vet check for Chesapeake. You should be able to approach a trailer.
Okay, so I can just
Yeah, you can set up a
so
trailer.
that'll be fine.
If you have an awning or a tent, easy up or something, you know, if your horse will tolerate it, or anywhere that you can put the buckets of water though under shade, because you don't want to come back to like boiling hot water and in extra you are not allowed to use ice.
They
correct?
changed that.
Yeah, they changed it. They are doing a temporary change that they are allowing us for extra now to put ice in our water.
Okay.
Nice.
Super exciting for those of us who have heavy muscle groups.
Yeah.
You're always allowed to do that for AERC. You're also allowed to do like ice boots and stuff. You can't do ice boots for extra, but you can do it for AERC.
I guess they said Ector was the last holdout on the ice rule. For all the regional CTR groups.
I'm not sure about that one because I really don't know about any of the others. I've only ever done extra, but yeah, we were. They announced that at the beginning of July, and we were very excited about that rule change. It's a trial rule change for now, so hopefully it will stay.
How much of a pain is it? You mentioned that you can talk to the ride manager and ask whether you can come that morning if you're close. How much of a pain is that for people? Like, is it on a scale of say 0 to 10?
It really depends per ride, I think. You said you're like War Deck area, so you're probably thinking like Fair Hill.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Those rides usually are fine. There's
Okay.
multiple entrances in and out of the fields and stuff. It's not a big deal. Ride with really tight parking that has like a one-way in, one-way out. Sometimes they're a little like,
That makes
or they've
sense.
got like hundreds starting that are starting down the driveway, and they're like, hey, I need to be here at the same time. Sometimes those rides aren't gonna love if you're gonna come in first thing in the morning.
I have a friend that really wants to try the Fair Hill one as well, but she is not so sure about the camping situation. So
Yeah, no, Fair Hill is generally both the Foxcatcher, which is the endurance one in the spring, or the spring or fall CTRs. Both are very amicable to you coming in the morning of.
cool. Thank you.
Because it's what I do every time too.
Okay. Cool.
For the Fair Hill one, when you start, like, I know they had like the set time. It was like 7:38. I don't know, 8 o'clock for the 10 mile. Did they pace them, or do they just let us all?
No, they'll space you out,
Okay.
and they will give you a specific ride time. Be like, your ride time is 8:17.
Okay.
Like, it's
I like that.
super specific. It's like dressage times.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So, coming from the show world, I've been to a couple of rides, and they have these community water troughs and buckets, and so is biosecurity not an issue? Which is, in the horse show world, it's like, God forbid if you,
Yeah.
you know, touch a horse without gloves.
That is a very, very different thing. And I think it does, like you said, like people that come from the show world are like, oh my God, all the horses drink out of this trough, and then you sponge out of it too, and then your dog got in it. Like, but yeah, I think the thought is a lot of times that your horse, the horses that are there have been vetted, and like nobody's bringing a sick horse to do 25 miles. You're also out on trail. There would be like no way for you to separate water, so you're already like all together. I mean, there are people that are very worried about that and will keep their stuff completely separate. But for the most part, people are like, free to upgrade it. He has my phone number and email. It was on the flyer. Have any questions? You want somebody to do a conditioning ride with you so you can figure out pace? Just contact me. I'm glad to do that. This time I ride by myself. So happy to have people come out. If you're like, hey, I want to come try and ride an endurance horse. Most of the time I have more than enough, and I will gladly take somebody out on one of my horses out in Fair Hill. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.